Welcome to Titan Insights, where we bring day one advice for founders from industry experts. And today we have Lisa Abramson, who is an executive coach, best-selling author, and mindfulness teacher. And Lisa was called an inspiration by Oprah. She's helped more than 25,000 people increase their mental resiliency and has shared and been featured at TEDx, Forbes, NPR, New York Times, Fast Company, and more. And before becoming a coach, Lisa worked as a marketing executive as a tech company in the Bay Area. So, Lisa, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And Lisa, I saw something on your website that I loved. It was a quote from Bill Gates that said, "Everyone needs a coach. We all need people that give us feedback. That's how we improve." And as early stage investors and how we support founders through coaching, totally on board with that and love that. But I think when founders hear coaching, it could mean so many different things in this day and age. Can you just kind of maybe level set in terms of all the different types of coaching out there and how founders should think about all the different avenues?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think a great place to start and think about is what is the whole support system that you want in place? And the truth be told, a lot of high achievers have a lot of resistance around getting support. They think it makes them weak, or we've been drilled in this be self sufficient and like you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And that's great. But also, as you're looking to grow as a leader, the only way you can grow is by having this support system in place. So that could mean having peer support, whether it's one-on-one or whether it's groups. It could mean hiring a coach. It could be mean working with Titans. It could even be using AI effectively to create that system. And it's really figuring out where you might I think you probably want some of all the different type of support, but then figuring out is the first step that I need to have some more emotional intelligence, or do I want help with tactics like public speaking or communication? So figuring like what is your first entry point that you might need help is a great spot.
Great. And so, our audience for this is first-time founders. So walk us through a little bit of the process. A founder is just starting out. Someone is able to convince them, okay, let's get a coach. How do they even go about that process? I guess first, when should they consider finding a coach? Is day one of a company too early? Is it too late? So when should they consider that? And then how do they go about looking for their coach?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So, a lot of early stage founders might worry that it's a waste of time to work with a coach. And that is, time is of the essence. There's things to get done. I would say a good coach makes you much more efficient and effective. So the goal is that you might be spending a half hour or an hour a week with a coach, but you're getting 10x in productivity. So I think setting that out at the get-go is finding a coach that can help you increase your productivity. Like that should be something you're looking for is how are they going to help me get out of my own way, right? Because that can be a limiting factor is what are the patterns and habits, whether it's, communication can be a big thing. So we can either be, too abrupt in communication or, under communicate. And that can cause a lot of problems. So something where maybe you have to smooth some of your communication style to not ruffle as many feathers. For example, you can get a lot more done when you're not cleaning up the mess of poorly communicated plans at the get-go. So it's about finding ways to make yourself more efficient. So I would find someone who has a focus on, results and knows how to work with highly motivated individuals. So they're going to give you the systems and tools in place. I'd say the other big benefit of a coach is that you're not often able to see or digest feedback from others, like at your company, for example, because it just might come as a little bit of an offense or might come loaded, and you might not be able to integrate that as well. Versus when you have a coach, you know they're on your side. They know they're trying to make you as great of a leader as possible. And so your ability to metabolize that feedback, implement it, and actually change is just so much more efficient. Because a coach can be really blunt with you and you're not going to take it the wrong way. You're just like, you're like, hey, just so you know, when you said that, if I was in this person's shoes, I would be kind of offended by that. That wouldn't go across. And you go, oh, okay. I mean, and I've had instances, plenty of these in my working with, founders and early stage companies where they go, oh, well, that wasn't my intention at all. And I go, okay, that's great. It doesn't matter if that wasn't your intention. That's how it's coming across. It's coming across as I know everything, or, arrogant in a way that's just going to limit you at some point. So it's those blind spots that you just can't see in yourself, because oftentimes the intention it's a good intention behind it, but it's not executed.
And the founders that you've worked with, Lisa, so let's say a founder decides they want to coach, they maybe talk to a couple different people. I don't know if you'd recommend, trying a couple different coaches out. They know now what to look for and the things that you mentioned in terms of someone who's going to help them with their productivity, give them honest feedback. How, in those kind of initial conversations, do they tease out whether that is the right coach for them? Like, are they blunt and they just ask about that, or what are the tips for figuring out who's the right one?
Yeah, I do feel like you've got to go with your gut on this. It's just do you connect with this person? Do you feel like you can be honest with them? Does it feel comfortable and natural? And if there's some initial comfort, then you will get the most out of that relationship. So I would say talk to a few people and then go with your gut. And then usually, if it doesn't work out, you'll find another coach. But at some point, it's just working together, whether you decide for yourself, how much is this helping?
Yeah. And is there a cadence that you've seen works well? Is it once a week, once a month? I know founders are busy, but this is obviously a priority.
Yeah, absolutely. So usually meeting weekly for the first few months, just to establish rapport and really get into what are the challenges, what are the issues, and then the cadence can be, every other week, or depending on, what's going on, kind of ratchet up or ratchet down, but usually weekly for at least a couple months to establish, that connection. And then sometimes it can be, quicker touch bases or text messages and other more informal interactions.
Great. And so that's the, professional coach side of things. And founders may also have more informal coaches, whether it's their Titan coach and they meet more periodically if something comes up. But I think in both situations, there's the same challenge of how do founders make the most out of those conversations? So can you talk to us a little bit about what type of preparation, questions should they bring to those conversations to make the most out of their coaches?
Yeah, absolutely. As it relates to the interactions that you have, with the Titans and with these incredible minds and leaders that you have access to, I would say, in addition to kind of tactical help of, I'm trying to, let's say, break into this new industry. What are the connections and relationships you have there? I would say really digging into the, how did you approach this? Why did you make this pivot? Or and trying to get in the mind of how can I think like a Titan? And that is how you will really get ahead. So you're asking the how and the why questions to really try to uncover, like, how are they thinking about this? What was guiding them? And you might hear something about a thought process, but you might also hear something unexpected that someone very cerebral said, I actually listened to my gut on this. And this is how I, was able to hone my intuition, or, it turns out I do, a walk once a week in nature. And that is my time to really figure out where I'm drawn to lead, or, what I need to uncover, or they have a meditation practice. So be curious that you might hear something unexpected around, what is the whole picture of this person, and how do they lead, and where do they get the impulse to lead?
Hmm. I love that. I love that because I think there is so much wisdom that Titans have that goes beyond some of the tactical initial parts of the conversation. There just has to be a good way to tease that out.
And they've probably never been asked. They're probably delighted to have someone who's curious about that, because it's an interesting new thing for them to share. And I know a lot of senior leaders I work with, that's what they start to think about in terms of their legacy is, how do they want to be known, and how do they want to support the next generation of leaders?
How do you work with early stage founders to get them through some of those moments of really difficult challenges at the beginning?
Yeah. So a bit counterintuitive, but I would say you have to allow yourself to like feel that disappointment and that shame and those uncomfortable feelings, because when you feel them and process them, then we can move forward and learn from them. But the worst thing a founder could do is just to like pretend that it didn't affect them, or to just say, oh, that's yesterday's business, because it'll catch up with you. The drain of that experience. I would say also creating a culture where failure is seen as feedback, and there's a more welcoming, encouraging environment around that. So I love a story that Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, shares, where she has oops moments in her company where they just come together and they're like, hey, this is where things went wrong. And let's all come together and destigmatize the failure or the mistakes and what we learned. So you can do that as a founder. You're setting the culture of, we don't hide from mistakes. We bring them forward. We talk about them. And then we learn and we move forward. But also just giving yourself a moment. I have some, meditations on Insight Timer and other spots to process what it feels like to be, stuck in it, maybe a little bit of a shame spiral, or to feel uncomfortable. Let yourself feel those emotions and then move forward. And again, it might seem, excessive. And if you're more of the cerebral type, you're like, I don't want to think about my feelings or process them, but they will come back and cause problems down the road. So giving yourself a beat and having a process of how do you acknowledge what you're feeling, feel it, and then move forward.
I think there is value in reflecting, and whether it's through a coach or mindfulness. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you've seen as the benefits to carving out, even if it's just a little bit of time in the week, for that kind of quick check-in?
Yeah, I think every founder should carve out time for that reflection. It's highly important. It can make you so much more efficient. I'd also say I see, and one of the things I help when I coach clients is helping them carve out time for the deep work. So we can often get stuck in the like busyness of the day to day and just like a whack-a-mole, and letting yourself have those like deep think blocks of time and having them as sacred. And I'd also say, that is when a peer accountability buddy works really well, of just saying, hey, can you check in with me that of those 2 spots I saved for like a couple hours of deep work, did I actually do those? I mean, because that is the first thing to get sucked away, because it's like, here's the immediate need, and we forget to have the deep think time. So I think create those as sacred spots on, your calendar. Create a culture where people can have uninterrupted deep work time, and then a coach can help you with that, but also a coach can help you think about just kind of taking that eagle eyes view of what's going on, asking things. There's a book called The One Thing, and they ask a question is like, what's the one thing that I can do? And by doing that, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary. And so when you ask a question like that, you're like, ooh, easier or unnecessary. Like that is when you can really go leaps and bounds ahead. You can also use, ChatGPT or Grok or any AI to say like, hey, this is my goal, for, my 2-year vision. How can I achieve it in 6 months?
Mm.
How are you thinking about what I would do differently to achieve this in 6 months instead of 2 years? And just allowing some more inputs of creative thoughts. So just being
Yeah.
flexible to ask, it really comes down to asking the right questions. You have to ask them of yourself. That's how you can use peers, titans, coaches, is to ask better questions because you'll get better answers.
That's great. And so you mentioned a little bit of some of the AI tools out there. We've heard a lot about AI for therapy and coaching. How can founders effectively use different AI platforms for their coaching, if in addition to or instead of having a physical
Yeah.
coach?
I think it's great for doing, letting it be a starting point. The AI can be a great starting point of asking questions. If you haven't already, like, what, if you're being brutally honest, what are my blind spots? How am I getting in my own way? Or asking even a question like, why am I procrastinating on this? And just allow yourself to, like, that is a very safe space. It's you and the computer. Like, you're not, it's here. What is this safe space going to share? But that can be something really awesome to then bring to a coach and say, okay, this is what it said, I needed to work on, and let me see how I can take this and move it forward. Um, I also love using AI for really visualizing my goals as completed. So, what is, the milestone you're hoping to achieve? And then I say, tell me about reaching this milestone, whatever, 6 months in the future. And I want it to be visually, make it as descriptive as possible. I want visual, I want auditory, I want kinesthetic, like give me all the details so I can really feel that, goal achievement very crisply, clearly. And then I love it, in my Tesla, I have Grok enabled, and I'll just say, I'll be driving and I'll say, okay, tell me about my goal being achieved 6 months from now. Like, tell me a story about it. And so I'm driving and I'm just like, okay, I'm thinking about my goal. I'm imagining it achieved. And it's a great, extra way to flex that muscle and come up with new ways to reach what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, manifestation. What are some of the don'ts when founders are interacting with coaches? Let's say a founder is about to meet their Titan coach about something. Might be general introduction, maybe it's super specific about something tactical in nature. What are some things they should not do?
I mean, you need to don't, I would say prepare wisely. Very important. Prepare for this conversation, respect people's time and your own time. So know what you want to get out of it, set an intention of what you want to achieve, and then be really thoughtful about what else you might be able to accomplish. So, preparing is really important, for sure.
Great. And in all the areas that we've talked about, whether it's um, dealing with setbacks or if you're trying to develop a resilient mindset or prevent burnout, is there kind of like a checklist of things that founders should think about on whether maybe it's annual or quarterly, just a run through to say, okay, am I good in these areas?
That's a good question. So I would, it can be as simple as journaling every once in a while, or just keeping, a score of like, here's, 5 categories in my life and work, and how's it going? Sleep should be really up there because that is vital to everything. But figuring out how to, everyone knows what will make them operate and thrive. They know, if they eat better, if they sleep better, if they have those social connections and they're able to do meaningful work and accomplish their goals, like that will help them thrive. But giving an honest assessment of like, how am I incorporating those, and then find ways, maybe it's that you're working out with other, startup founders. And then so you're like, okay, two birds, one stone. It's sort of an accountability group. It's also like, what are the ways that you can make that work? And then I would say, sleep is absolutely vital. So making sure that at some point you can turn off the mind, restore, and then start again.
Lisa, this has been so helpful. You speak with so many founders and executives. Any, traits or practices that you see in some of the highest performing people that you work with that we should advise our founders on?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's so many so many things. Just knowing to get support, to ask, and I'd say to be curious. When you're curious, you stay out of judgment, you stay out of criticism, and you can come up with better ideas. So any ways that you can continue to make your mindset a curious, flexible mindset is really beneficial.
That's great. And when you're curious, those coach and Titan conversations will expand a lot more. Yeah. Lisa, where can founders find you and learn more about your coaching?
Sure. It's at lisaabramson.com.
Okay. And on Insight Timer.
That's correct.
Which I'm a huge fan of.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your tips with our founders.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.